All right, how's everybody doing today? Hotep, hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. So everybody share this broadcast on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. All right, welcome to the African History Network show. It is Tuesday, January 24th, 2023. Okay, so many of you saw me on Faraji Muhammad's show, The Culture, today. And we did a follow-up story to our Thursday, January 19th, 2023 story dealing with the Florida Department of Education rejecting a advanced placement African American history course that is going to be that is being piloted in 60 high schools across the country. Okay. And one of those high schools is going to be in the state of Florida. So since that story that we did on Thursday, January 19th, on Friday, January 20th, the Florida Department of Education released their 6 objections to this advanced placement African American history course. Okay. And then on Monday, January 23rd, Governor Ron DeSantis held a press conference. And during this press conference, he spoke publicly for the first time about why the course was rejected. Okay. So I want to deal with that topic on today's show. Everybody share this broadcast on social media platforms. I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, writer, and historian. So on Faraji's show today, we were pressed for time, and I didn't get a chance to get into this topic as much as I wanted to. So we're going to deal with that here. So let's look at I want to look at this first article. We're going to look at a number of articles, and I'm going to show you the actual graphic, the actual chart that the Department of Education, Florida Department of Education released. Okay. So if we look at this first article here from the New York Times, okay, and I'll also give you information about our online history classes that I teach on Wednesday and Saturday. We have a free class on Saturday, January 28th, of Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you at school. So we'll give you some information about that as well. You can visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com for more information. So Thursday, January 19th, 2022, New York Times had this article, Florida rejects AP Advanced Placement African American Studies class. The state's Department of Education said in a letter that the course context was inextricably contrary to Florida law and significantly lacks educational value. Quote, inextricably contrary to Florida law and significantly lacks educational value. Okay. All right. So let's look at the rest of this article here from the New York Times. So Florida will not allow a new advanced placement course on African American studies to be offered in its high schools, stating that the course is not, quote unquote, historically accurate and violates state law. Now, in a letter last week, so the letter was dated January 12th, 2023. In a letter last week, the Florida Department of Education informed the College Board. Now, the College Board is a nonprofit organization that administers advanced placement exams, okay, for high school, okay, that it would not include the Advanced Placement African American History course in the state's course directory, okay, the state of Florida. Now, rigorous AP courses allow high school students to obtain credit in advanced placement in college. So the letter dated January 12th said, as presented, the content of this course is inextricably is inexplicably contrary to Florida law and significantly lacks educational value. And let me increase the font size here. Let me zoom in on this. Okay. The department's Office of Articulation, which oversees accelerated programs for high school students, rolled on January 12th. All right. Now, in the future, should the College Board be willing to come back to the table with lawful, historically accurate content, the Florida Department of Education will always be willing to reopen the discussion, end quote. Now, the letter with no name attached to it did not cite which law that the course violated, okay? It did not cite which law the course violated or what in the curriculum was objectionable. The department did not respond to questions asking for more details at the time that this article came out, January 19th, Thursday, January 19th, 2023. But in 2022, Governor Ron DeSantis, who is a Republican, signed legislation that restricted how racism and other aspects of history can be taught in schools and workplaces. Now, the law's sponsors call it the Stop Woke Act, WOKE. Among other things, it prohibits instruction that could make students feel responsibility for or guilt about the past actions of other members of their race. Basically, what they're saying is that they don't want white children to feel guilty for slavery, for segregation, things like this. But this history is not taught in a manner to try to make white children feel guilty about something. Okay. Now, many people suspect that a lot of older white people are afraid of what happens when their grandchildren and great-grandchildren find out the atrocities that this country has inflicted upon African Americans, and maybe one of their grandparents or great-grandparents were involved in that, or maybe one of their parents were involved in that. So this is something that, many people really suspect, but this history is not being taught from a perspective to try to make white children feel guilty about something. Now, the name of this law is the Individual Freedom Act of 2022 in Florida, the Individual Freedom Act, which is also known as the Stop Woke Act. Now, on Thursday, January 19th, 2023, the College Board said that the African American Studies course was still undergoing a multi-year pilot phase. The course is multidisciplinary and addresses not just history, but civil rights, politics, literature, the arts, even geography. Okay. So there are 100 different topics dealt with in this course, as laid out by the 81-page syllabus for this course. Okay, there's 100 different topics that are discussed, and the Florida Department of Education they objected to 6 of these topics. So we're going to get into those 6 topics that they objected to. Okay, so the College Board said in a statement, quote, "The process of piloting and revising course frameworks is a standard part of any new advanced placement course, and frameworks often change significantly as a result." So this is an evolving class. They're gonna most likely tweak it as it goes along. This is the first year that this class is being offered, and it's being offered in 60 high schools across the country in a pilot program. Quote, "We will publicly release the updated course framework when it is completed and well before this class is widely available in American high schools, and well before this class is widely available in American high schools. Now, Governor Ron DeSantis, who is widely considered a top contender for the Republican presidential nomination, has repeatedly taken on polarizing culture war issues. Okay, repeatedly taken on polarizing culture war issues, including teaching about race and gender. Now, those stances are popular among many parents and helped him win re-election in 2022 by a wide margin. Now, he pledged when he was sworn into a second term in January 2023 that he would continue seeking to make Florida, quote, the land of liberty and the land of sanity, end quote. Now, in 2022, a federal judge blocked part of the Stop Woke Act, officially named the Individual Freedom Act, that would have regulated workplace trainings on issues such as race and diversity. But the law still applies to public schools. So does another 2022 law in Florida, called the Parental Rights in Education Act, which critics call Don't Say Gay. And this law, among other things, bans instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity in kindergarten through third grade. Now, some Florida teachers have said they feel as if they are looking over their shoulder, worrying about what and how they can teach. And what happens is, with laws like this in Florida and other states, it causes a lot of anxiety for teachers. It causes a lot of these laws in various states, Oklahoma and Texas and different things like this, especially a lot of these former Confederate states. A lot of these anti-critical race theory laws, etc., are very ambiguous, and it causes confusion among teachers what can actually be taught. Okay, so a lot of them are, and this played a big part. A lot of this came to head in 2022, February 2022, during African American History Month or Black History Month. Okay, because it became unclear what was acceptable to teach and what was not acceptable to teach. And, a lot of teachers, understandably so, don't want to lose their jobs, don't want to be prosecuted, etc. Okay, so they may avoid certain topics, avoid certain issues. All right, let's continue here. So even before Governor Ron DeSantis signed the contentious laws in 2022 restricting what can be taught, his administration rejected dozens of math textbooks for use in public school classrooms, claiming their incorporation of social emotional learning and critical race theory. Okay, social emotional learning and critical race theory. The rejection of the new AP African American Studies course was first reported by the National Review. Now, the course has been tried in 60 schools across the country, including at least one school in Florida. At all schools, students taking part in the course will not receive an advanced placement exam score or college credit. Okay, so that's for those taking place in this pilot program. Now, Florida already prohibits schools from teaching critical race theory, academic framework for understanding in the United States that was not taught in high schools, but became a political rallying cry among parents and political activists on the right. Okay. Now, as I talked about on Faraji Muhammad's show, The Culture, on Thursday, January 19th, you have to go back to the tweet from March 15th, 2021 by Christopher Rufo, okay, this right-wing conservative commentator. And this laid out basically what the strategy was when it came to critical race theory. And I want to pull this up here. Hold on just a second. Let me pull this graphic up. That's from, but what he said is that they want to distort how people think about critical race theory, and they really want to redefine critical race theory. So whenever people read about something crazy in the news dealing with race, they automatically think critical race theory. Okay. And what he was talking about doing was redefining what critical race theory is, hijacking it and redefining what critical race theory is. And this is what they've done. Okay. And as I've said previously, on my show and other shows, as I've said previously, is that those who teach critical race theory and the counter movement to fight against this anti-critical race theory movement, they were too slow, I think, in fighting back. They were too slow and not vocal enough and not organized enough to fight back against this initiative. Because this anti-critical race theory is based upon lies. All right. And it's fueled by Fox News. It's fueled by dark money. And it should have never gotten to this point. Okay. And there's an article from NBCnews.com that deals with how the critical race theory fight has entered into local school boards. Okay, it's a 16-page expose by NBCnews.com, and it's let me see, which one is that? Okay, it's not that one. Is try to pull this up here. Critical race theory battle invades school boards. This one right here. Everybody should read this article. Let me pull this up. Okay, here we go. And this article goes in depth and explains what happened. All right, how's everybody doing? Everybody share this broadcast on your social media platforms. I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. We're discussing the response from the Florida Department of Education that came out Friday, January 20th. And they released 6 objections to the Advanced Placement African American History course that they banned. And we know that the story came out Thursday, January 19th, that they banned this Advanced Placement African American History course. Read this article from NBCnews.com from June 15th, 2021, entitled Critical Race Theory Battle Invades School Boards. Critical Race Theory Battle Invades School Boards with help from conservative groups. In towns nationwide, well-connected conservative activists and Fox News have ramped up the tension in fights over race and equity in schools. So this goes deep into it. And they, one of the things they do is they highlight 165 local and national groups that aim to disrupt lessons on race and gender. Conflicts like this are playing out in cities and towns across the country amid the rise of at least 165 local and national groups that aim to disrupt lessons on race and gender, according to NBC News analysis of media reports and organizations. promotional materials, reinforced by conservative think tanks, law firms, and activist parents. These groups have found allies and families frustrated over COVID-19 restrictions in schools and have weaponized the right's opposition to critical race theory, turning it into a political rally point, While efforts vary, they share strategies of disruption, publicity, and mobilization. The groups swarm school board meetings, inundate districts with time-consuming public records requests, and file lawsuits and federal complaints alleging discrimination against white students. File lawsuits and federal complaints alleging discrimination against white students. They have become media darlings in conservative circles and made the debate over critical race theory a national issue. Read the rest of this. Now, where's the counter movement on our side to fight against this? Okay, this gets deep into it. Now, this is from June 15, 2021, from NBC News, by Tyler Kincaid, Brandy Zadrozny, and Ben Collins. Okay, critical race theory battle invades school boards with help from conservative groups. Now, Stephen K. Bannon, who's on his way to prison, okay, Stephen K. Bannon, who was convicted of contempt of Congress and was one of the organizers of the domestic terrorist attack to overthrow the government, January 6, 2021. Stephen K. Bannon has said on his podcast, and this podcast was downloaded millions of times, he said the way to political power in America today is through local school boards, okay? Getting elected to the local school board, taking over the local school board, then you run for a larger position. You run for the county, you run for the House of Representatives, you run for your state House of Representatives, state Senate, things like this. But he said the way to political power in America today is through the local school boards. Now, for African Americans, where is our counter movement to counter the takeover of local school boards by crazy, unreasonable right wingers who are anti-critical race theory and spreading lies? Where is the counter movement to fight against that? Okay, let's continue. How's everybody doing? Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like on this broadcast. All right, so Florida already prohibits schools from teaching critical race theory, an academic framework for understanding racism in the United States that was not taught in high schools, but became a political rallying cry among parents and political activists on the right. Now, the state of Florida also does not allow educators to teach the 1619 Project, a classroom program that was developed by the New York Times and sought to reframe the country's history by putting the consequences of slavery, and contributions of African Americans at the center of the national narrative. Now, Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr., a former chair of Harvard University's Department of African and African American Studies and director of the Hutchins Center for African and African American Research, who was a consultant to the College Board as it developed the AP course, said last year in 2022 that he hoped the curriculum would not shy away from such debatable topics, not as a framework, but as a way of studying different theories of the African American experience. Now, so Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr. was one of the scholars who was consulted in putting together this advanced placement African American history course. So was Dr. Greg Carr, who's a friend of mine in the chair of the Afro-American Studies Department at Howard University. He was also one of the scholars who's consulted in putting together this AP course. Okay. All right. So that's some background information. That's an article from New York Times. Florida rejects AP African American Studies class. That's from Thursday, January 19th, 2023. Okay. Now, also, there's a good article from CNN.com. So I want to give some background information as this story developed. Okay. There's a article from CNN.com from Thursday, January 19th as well. Let's pull this one up here. Okay. DeSantis administration rejects inclusion of AP African American Studies class in Florida high schools. Okay. A few things from here, from this article. All right, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a heart on this broadcast. Visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. You can register for the online history classes that I teach as well. We have one coming up Wednesday, January 25th, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1800 to 1968. And then on Saturday, January 28th, we have a free class session of my big class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So the article here says the administration of Republican Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida is blocking a new advanced placement course for high school students on African American Studies. Okay, they talk about the January 12th letter. The letter at the time did not elaborate on what the agency found objectionable. Okay, at the time that this article came out, they stated this. It was the January 12th letter. The letter said, in the future, should College Board be willing to come back to the table with lawful, historically accurate content, the Florida Department of Education will always be willing to reopen the discussion. Now, the letter did not elaborate on what the agency found objectionable in the course content. Governor Ron DeSantis spokesman Brian Griffin said in a statement to CNN that the course, quote, leaves large ambiguous gaps that can be filled with additional ideological material, which we will not allow. Okay, as the Department of Education has previously stated, if the College Board amends the course to comply, provides a full course curriculum, and incorporates historically accurate content, then the department will consider the course for approval, spokesperson for Ron DeSantis, Brian Griffin, said. Now, let's see here. In a statement to CNN, the College Board declined to directly address the decision in Florida, but said, quote, we look forward to bringing this rich and inspiring exploration of African American history and culture to students across the country, end quote. Now, the rejection of the Advanced Placement African American Studies course follows efforts by Ron DeSantis to overhaul Florida's educational curriculum to limit teaching about critical race theory. So they talk about in 2021, the Stop Woke Act, etc. And the law also, the Stop Woke Act, the Individual Freedom Act, also banned material from the 1619 Project. And then last year, 2022, Ron DeSantis also signed a bill restricting how schools can talk about race with students. Now, the College Board unveiled plans to offer African American Studies an African American Studies class for the first time in 2022. They revealed plans for this. We posted articles on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, about this. So if you don't follow us on Facebook, the African History Network, and also the Michael Imhotep Show on Facebook, be sure to follow us there and turn on live notifications so you know when we go live. Now, the course is being offered as a pilot. The course is being offered as a pilot in 60 schools across the country during the 2022-2023 school year, with the goal of making the course available to all schools in the 2024-2025 school year. Now, the first African American, the first advanced placement African American studies exam would be administered in the spring of 2025, according to the College Board website. Now, Brian Griffin, spokesperson for Governor Ron DeSantis, shared an apparent syllabus for the class with CNN, but did not identify which portions the state found problematic. The 81-page document labeled a preview, which was dated from February 2022, provided a course framework covering, quote, key topics that extend from the medieval kingdoms of West Africa, to the ongoing challenges and achievements of the contemporary movement. Now, one of the things Dr. Greg Carr discussed on Roland Martin Unfiltered last week, Thursday, I think it was January 19th, Thursday, January 19th, I think Greg was on. He talked about the fact that this course does not start our history in slavery. It deals with prior to slavery, which he said is very important. He's absolutely correct. Okay, so read the rest of this article here from CNN.com. DeSantis administration rejects inclusion of AP African American Studies class in Florida. All right, now there's another piece I want to look at, and this is from January 21st, 2023. This is from Saturday, January 21st, 2023. Okay, so this is the day after they released their objections. Okay, and actually we'll come to that in just a second. Let's look at their objections. So in some of these articles, they address the objections, and there's a tweet from Manny Diaz, who's the commissioner of education for the state of Florida. All right, and this is what his tweet said. Despite the lies from the Biden White House, Florida rejected an AP course filled with critical race theory and other obvious violations of Florida law. We proudly require the teaching of African American history. We do not accept woke indoctrination masquerading as education. Now, in reading articles from January 21st, Saturday, and then also we're going to come to that dealing with it from the New York Times and CNN. They do teach Black history currently in Florida schools. Now, the extent, how in depth it is, I don't know. Haven't seen a syllabus, anything like that. I don't know. Okay. But it's not a situation where they don't teach African American history in schools. It's part of their overall history classes. I don't know if they have separate African American history classes that are dedicated to African American history. And you have to have separate classes dedicated to African American history that teach the history from our perspective, okay? That incorporates us through all aspects of history in this country, but teaches the history from our perspective. All right, that's different than just dealing with general history, and then you talk about some African Americans who were part of the general history. Okay, this is what's needed is much different, and this history has to be taught in every school across the country. This is something that Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who co-founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History in September 1915, advocated for. And he felt that the history of African Americans need to be taught in every school across the country, because the way you treat a people is largely based upon what you think about a people. What you think about a people is based upon what you have been taught about a people. What you've been taught about a people is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about a people. Okay, so when you know more about a people's history, okay, it usually causes you to have a greater respect for those people. But if you know very little about a people's history, then it allows a lot of It allows a lot of lies and stereotypes and things of this nature to be taught about a people's history. Okay. And the other thing is that when it's mandatory for you to learn, uh, uh, when it's mandatory in high school, for instance, for you to take an American history class, okay, or a world history class that centers on Europe, but especially American history class. When it's mandatory for you to take that class to be able to graduate, to get a diploma, so you can go on to college, so you can go to trade school or go into the military or something like that. What it does is it elevates the people's history who that class is largely about, therefore elevating those people in value. And if you have another group of people over here and it's not a requirement for you to learn their history, is not a requirement for you to take a class that centers on their experiences and their history, especially in this country, then what you do is you diminish their value, because you're saying I can graduate from high school and not have to take a single class that deals with your history. Therefore, you must not be, therefore your history must not be of value. And the people that the history is about must not have much value also. So you tacitly have this power dynamic, and you tacitly elevate one group of people whose history you're saying is mandatory that you learn this to be able to graduate from this institution, graduate from this school. Okay, so if we look at this here, concerns found within College Board submitted AP African American Studies course. They laid out 6. Number 1, topic 4.15, intersectionality and activism. Intersectionality and activism. Okay. And hopefully you can see this. I'll try to blow this up as much as possible. Let me see something here. Okay, so their concern, intersectionality is foundational to critical race theory, CRT, and ranks people based on their race, wealth, gender, and sexual orientation. People are not ranked like that in critical race theory. People are not ranked like that. And also in critical race theory is not taught in K through 12. It's a legal analysis taught in graduate school, is taught in law school, largely law school, graduate school, a little bit at the undergraduate level, and is usually taught by legal scholars, law professors, attorneys, things like this. Just teaching American history, just teaching African American history is not critical race theory. It's just stupid. Okay, but this is the type of game that these people are running. All right, so so included reading that they are objecting to is Kimberly Crenshaw, known as the founder of intersectionality and co-editor of critical race theory, the key writings that formed the movement. And Kimberly Crenshaw was on Joanne Reed's show today, The Readout, and she's one of the architects of critical race theory. They object to Angela Davis, who is a self-avowed communist and Marxist. Okay, they object to Angela Davis. Now, intersectionality refers to the way various forms of inequality often work together and build on one another. Okay, they objected to topic 4.19, Black queer studies. And this included reading that they objected to from Roderick Ferguson, who exclaims, quote, "We have to encourage and develop practices whereby queerness isn't a surrender to the status quos of race, class, gender, and sexuality. It means building forms of queerness that reject the given realities of the government and the market," end quote. Now, just because you include different people's perspectives does not mean that you are pushing the way that they think. You're dealing with different, African Americans are not a monolith, just like white people are not a monolith. So just because you include different perspectives of how people think who are involved in African American history, that doesn't mean you're pushing their agenda. That just means you're looking at this holistically, and you're dealing with it. If you talk about the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X, that doesn't mean you're pushing their agenda. You talk about Dr. King in history. You talk about Dr. King. You talk about the modern day civil rights movement. Okay. If you talk about the Deacons for Defense of Justice, that doesn't mean you're pushing their agenda. Okay. Because the Deacons for Defense of Justice were part of the civil rights movement. Armed African-American resistance is part of the civil rights movement. That's laid out in the book, This Nonviolent Stuff That Gets You Killed, How Guns Made the Civil Rights Movement Possible. Okay. So all you're doing is you're dealing with understanding different aspects of this history and looking at it completely. This book right here by Professor Charles E. Cobb Jr., This Nonviolent Stuff That Gets You Killed, okay, How Guns Made the Civil Rights Movement Possible. That's real history. If you actually understand the civil rights movement, that's not what's talked about in Eyes on the Prize, the first Eyes on the Prize series, not what's talked about there. And that leads to the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, okay, who also dealt with armed resistance. Okay, they objected to the Movement for Black Lives, or Black Lives Matter, topic 4.29. Movement for Black Lives is an organization with stated objectives that include eliminating prisons and jails. Now, you would think that Donald Trump supporters and people who supported the domestic terrorists that attacked the U.S. Capitol building, you would think that they would want to eliminate prisons and jails so their heroes could be freed. Okay. Okay, so all right, let's continue here. You would think they want to eliminate prisons, but they object to the Movement for Black Lives. They said it's an organization with stated objectives that include eliminating prisons and jails, ending pretrial detention, and concluding, quote, the war on Black, trans, queer, gender nonconforming, and intersex people. Okay, they mean ending the war on Black, trans, queer, gender nonconforming, and intersex people. Now, they object to included reading from Leslie K. Jones, who wrote, quote, every day Black people produce an unquantifiable amount of content for the same social media corporations that reproduce the white supremacist superstructures that oppress us. Okay, she's correct. Every day, Black people produce an unquantifiable amount of content for the same social media corporations that reproduce the white supremacist superstructures that oppress us. They objected to topic 4.16, Black feminist literary thought, including, and they objected to readings from Bell Hooks, author of now, first of all, Bell Hooks spelled her name all lowercase. But okay. Author of many intersectionality texts, and in the recommended reading states, quote, I began to use the phrase in my work, white supremacist capitalist patriarchy, end quote, because I wanted to have some language that would actually remind us continually of all the interlocking systems of domination that define our reality. Now, they're afraid of white children feeling guilty, and maybe some white adults feeling guilty, but white supremacist capitalistic patriarchy. Okay, so you trying to tell me that's not, this system is heavily based upon that? You trying to tell me it's not? So what is it that you're afraid of? You're afraid of the truth coming out? It's talking about the system. That's not pointing at people. That's not pointing at little children and saying you're a white supremacist or capitalistic patriarchy. Or no, but it's understanding the system that we're dealing with, so you can reform the system, so you can change the conditions. That's why we study this information, so you can change the conditions, so you can correct the wrongs. What happens is you have some people who benefit from the way things are today, and they don't want things to change. So they don't want, because when you for instance, when you go study the modern day civil rights movement, a lot of the freedom riders, a lot of the younger people who were involved in the civil rights movement, especially Freedom Summer 1964, a lot of them were white teenagers, white college students from the North who felt that segregation, the oppression of African Americans and things like this was wrong. And they went down south to help them organize for the right to vote, to help them organize to break the back of segregation, etc., because they thought that what was taking place in America was wrong. All right. What happens when you have white children who have African American friends, Latino friends, things like that, who listen to hip hop, etc.? What happens when they start really learning the history of this country and really learning about racism and white supremacy and white privilege and things like this? And what scared a lot of white people who want to keep the status quo is during a lot of those Black Lives Matter protests, when it came to George Floyd, or when it came to Ahmaud Arbery, when it came to Breonna Taylor and others, there were a lot of young white people out protesting, and white college students, etc. There were a lot of them out protesting against what was against the oppression, against the police brutality, against the unjust killing of African Americans. And for people that want to maintain the status quo, especially for a lot of white Republicans, that's something that's scary. Okay. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 4, Black feminist literary thought. Okay, that's number 4. Now, number 5, the fifth topic that the Florida Department of Education objected to is in the advanced placement African American history course, is the reparations movement. The reparations movement. Okay. All points and resources in this study advocate for reparations. Well, because they're telling the truth, that's why. All points and resources in this study advocate for reparations. There is no critical perspective or balancing opinion in this lesson. Now, first of all, if you have a problem advocating for repairing the damage of a legacy of 247 years of slavery, decades of Jim Crow segregation, racism, redlining, which was created by the federal government, okay, housing discrimination when it comes to education, funding for businesses, etc. And then you have an expressway system, which was created by the federal government, the U.S. Interstate Highway Acts of 1952 and 1956, that drive 41,000 miles of U.S. interstate highway all across the country, runs through 1,600 African-American communities, displaces up to about 1 million people, wipes out thousands of African-American homes and businesses. You have the deindustrialization of the inner city, where you take the infrastructure, you take the corporations, you take the plants, you take a lot of those businesses, move them out to the newly formed suburbs. And then when African Americans try to get approved for loans, even GI Bill loans, even loans that come from the GI Bill from benefits that we earned as serving in the military, we're largely discriminated against because of redlining. We're largely discriminated against from taking advantage of benefits that, one, we earned, two, our taxpayer dollars paid for. So if you're talking about repairing the damage of that type of legacy, then one, what's the problem? Two, if you have objections to it, I mean, you can include it in the course. If it included you know, people who had objections to reparations. You can include it in the course, but what's the problem with talking about that perspective and understanding the need to repair the damage and the comprehensive reparations that needs to take place? Once again, these are people who are afraid. These are people who are afraid of the real history getting out. All right, let's continue here. So this is the article from the New York Times. Florida gives reasons for, I'm sorry, we're looking at the actual 6 reasons that they laid out here in this chart. I'm glad they put this chart out. I'm glad they actually came forward and explained their reasons so we can go through and dissect this and show how ridiculous this is. Now, they objected to 6 topics out of 100 topics. They objected to 6 topics out of 100 topics. Okay. They objected to the reparations movement. All points and resources in the study advocate for reparations. There is no critical perspective or balancing opinion in this lesson. Notice they did not say African Americans don't deserve reparations. Notice they did not say that. Notice they did not say there's no reason to give reparations to African Americans because you have full equality. Notice they didn't say that. And the last topic that they said that they have a problem with, they object to, is topic 4.31. Black study and the Black struggle in the 21st century. Black study and Black struggle in the 21st century. Including they objected to readings by Robin D.G. Kelley, Professor Robin D.G. Kelley, who argues that activism rather than the university system is the catalyst for social transformation. Professor Kelley's first book was a study of Black communists in Alabama. Professor Kelley warns that simply establishing safe spaces and renaming campus buildings does nothing to overthrow capitalism. So these are the 6 topics that the Florida Department of Education, as well, I guess we could say also as well as Ron DeSantis, have a problem with. Out of 100 topics, check out Manny Diaz Jr. on Twitter, Senator Manny Diaz Jr. Check him out on Twitter. He posted this on January 20th, 2023, 5:35 p.m. I guess is Eastern Standard Time. We're going to post a link here also on the thread of the broadcast to Twitter, because out of 100 topics, you have a problem with less than 10% of them. Okay, now very quickly here, if we look at this piece from New York Times, this other one, Florida gives, let's see, this one right here. Florida gives reasons for rejecting AP African American Studies class. Okay, this one right here. Florida gives reasons for rejecting AP African American Studies class. The state's Department of Education cites examples of what it calls the woke indoctrination of students. Okay, I'm just going to highlight a few things in here. A few things that are updates. Okay, before we get to that, I want to let you know, if you like this type of information and if you like the information that we share here at the African History Network, be sure to register for the online history classes teach. We have a class coming up Saturday, January 28th, 2023, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's another session of our 16-week online course, Ancient Kemet, one of the original names for Egypt, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade. We have a free class session coming up Saturday, January 28th, 2023, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. You can register for it. Click right here. You can register for the full course. The full course is on sale, only $60, regularly $130. Now, if you're upset about this African American history course being banned by Florida, and if you want to learn more about our history, this class deals with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. You can also use this information with our children. I would say the course content is PG-13. Okay, it's not overly graphic. I don't do a lot of cursing, things like this. So if you say our children need to learn our history, things like this is an opportunity for that. I've been studying history 31 years. I put together this curriculum. I'm a historian, lecturer. I'm a radio talk show host, researcher, etc. So even after this course is over with, you still have access to the full class. So you can go back and watch classes on demand. As soon as you register for the full course, you can go and watch the previous classes that we've had also. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips. In the book references, usually we show you the text of the book on the screen so you can follow along. You don't have to buy any of these books to follow along in the class, okay? You don't have to feel obligated to do that. You can pay debit card, credit card. If you need to pay Cash App or something like that, email us right through the website. Just click on Contact the African History Network at the top of the website. And if you missed the class on the 21st, we did a free class session. Click right here to register for the class on the 21st. Now, on Wednesday, January 25th, we teach this. I teach the second class that I do. Normally we do this class on Tuesdays, but since I had to do Faraji Muhammad's show on Tuesday, January 24th, we'll do this class on Wednesday, January 25th. And it's going to be 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1800 to 1968. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1800 to 1968. And this class, we look at what leads up to the Civil War taking place. We look at the Reconstruction era. We look at the Great Migration, the Jim Crow era, World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power movement. So in Wednesday's class, we're going to look at the Red Summer of 1919, where you had 25 major race riots all across the country. The previous class, we looked at the World War I. We looked at World War I. Now we're going to look at what happened after World War I ended. And we're going to look at what happened when these African-American men came back home, and white men came back home, and these white men could not find jobs. And the jobs were being filled by African-Americans who were moving from the South up north, and also immigrants who were here in this country. And it's going to explode in racial tensions across the country. It's called the Red Summer of 1919. We'll also look at the Marcus Garvey and his movement, and the Universal Negro Improvement Association, which is right around the same time, an important part of history. And we'll look at the great flu pandemic, the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, 1919, and 1920 that was taking place at the same time World War I was going on. And about 20 million to 50 million people worldwide died of the Spanish flu pandemic, and 675,000 Americans died because of it as well. Okay, so visit our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, and you can register for those online classes. All right, let's continue here. And that is going to be Saturday, January 28th. Okay. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay, let's go back to, I want to go to this article here from Saturday, January 21st, 2023, just to look at the updates. Just to look at what we haven't covered. So in this one, entitled Florida Gives Reasons for Rejecting AP African American Studies class. Florida gives reasons for rejecting AP African American Studies class. The state's Department of Education cites examples of what it calls, quote, the woke indoctrination of students, end quote. Okay. So in a document released on Friday, January 20th, 2023, the Department of Education seemed to object to the more contemporary and therefore the more inherently politicized parts of the curriculum, which is being developed by the College Board. The department cites the inclusion of readings from many major African American scholars, activists, and writers who explored subjects like Black queer studies, Black feminist literary thought, the reparations movement, and intersectionality. The state of Florida says intersectionality, which refers to the way various forms of inequality often work together and build on one another. The state of Florida says intersectionality is foundational to critical race theory and, quote, ranks people based on their race, wealth, gender, and sexual orientation, end quote. So the Florida Department of Education also singled out activists like Angela Davis, a professor at the University of California, Santa Cruz, for being, quote, a self-avowed communist and Marxist, end quote. They singled out Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, a professor at Columbia Law School and the UCLA School of Law, who it said was, quote, known as the founder of intersectionality, and the feminist writer Bell Hooks for using language like white supremacists, capitalists, patriarchy, end quote. Now, the College Board did not respond to requests for comment, but it said in a statement on Thursday, January 19th, that the multidisciplinary course was still undergoing a multi-year pilot phase. Okay. It said the process of piloting and revising course frameworks is a standard part of any new advanced placement course, and frameworks often change significantly as a result. We will publicly release the updated course framework when it is completed and well before the class is widely available in American high schools, end quote. Now, the article goes on to say, and this is a point that I made today on Faraji's show, Florida law requires the study of African American history. Florida state law requires the study of African American history. But Governor Ron DeSantis, who is widely considered a top contender for the Republican presidential nomination, has gained national prominence for backing restrictions on what students in Florida can and cannot learn. Okay, so we talked about the Individual Freedom Act, also known as the Stop Woke Act, etc. Okay, we already talked about that. Now, also in news articles over the last couple of days, so Manny Diaz, the commissioner of education for Florida, he said that Black history is required to be taught in Florida schools. Now, I don't know the extent of the history. I don't know the quality of the history of the African American history that's being taught, etc. But they said it's required to be taught in schools. So, all right, we'll have to do more investigation on that. Let's see, page 3 of this article. I'm skipping over things that are redundant. Manny Diaz Jr., Florida's education commissioner, said on Twitter on Friday, January 20th, 2023 that the state had, quote, rejected an AP course filled with critical race theory and other obvious violations of Florida law. He said, quote, we proudly require the teaching of African-American history. We proudly require the teaching of African-American history, he said. We do not accept woke indoctrination masquerading as education, quote unquote. Now, officials in the state of Florida have said that if the College Board revises the course to comply with state law, it will consider the course for approval. It will consider the course for approval. Now, State Senator Chevron Jones, is the African-American man and a Democrat who represents part of Miami-Dade County, said that the Department of Education's refusal to include the advanced placement African-American history course reflected an attempt by state officials to, quote unquote, whitewash American history. Whitewash American history. He said, we're back at square one, seeing that we once again have to defend ourselves to be legitimate in America. Now, the curriculum, here's a picture of Florida State Senator Chevron Jones, who you see sometimes on the Readout with Joanne Reed on MSNBC. Now, the curriculum, which contains the authors and subjects mentioned in the Education Department letter, has not been released by the College Board, but has circulated online. An early version is being tested at 60 schools, according to someone involved in its development, but who asked to remain anonymous because it has not been officially released. Okay, now, the curriculum is being constantly revised based on feedback from African-American scholars, according to two people involved. The final version, one of the people working on it said, is likely to contain more facts and less theory. The final version, one of the people working on it said, is likely to contain more facts and less theory. Now, the topics at issue, 6 of the roughly 100 that constitute the course, all came from the last unit of the class, which covers movements and debates. Movements and debates. Okay, so we talked about what they object to, explores reparations for centuries long, okay, including examination of a stalled House bill that would create a commission to study reparations, H.R. 40, and the work of Ta-Nehisi Coates, who has written extensively on the issue of reparations. Okay, so, all right, read the rest of this article here. This is from Saturday, January 21st, 2023. Florida gives reasons for rejecting AP African-American Studies class. This is from the New York Times. All right, and then this piece right here from Monday, January 23rd, from CNN, CNN.com. DeSantis says Florida rejected new AP course on African-American studies for imposing political agenda. So here, Governor Ron DeSantis spoke for the first time publicly on the Florida Department of Education rejecting this this AP course. And I just want to highlight a couple things in here. DeSantis says Florida rejected new AP course on African-American studies for imposing political agenda. Monday, January 23rd, 2023. Okay. So Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said Monday that the state is blocking a new advanced placement course on African-American studies because it included the study of quote unquote queer theory and political movements that advocated for abolishing prisons. Queer theory and political movements that advocated for abolishing prisons. He said that's a political agenda. He said this at a press conference in Jacksonville, Florida. Okay, Jacksonville, Florida is also where Axe Handle Saturday took place, August 27th, 1960, where about 200 white supremacists beat civil rights activists who staged a lunch counter sit-in because they wanted first-class citizenship and they wanted to break the back of segregation, which was written into a lot of these state constitutions, like Florida state constitution, Alabama state constitution. So that's Jacksonville, Florida. That's the wrong quote. That's the wrong side of the line for Florida standards. We believe in teaching kids facts and how to think, but we don't believe they should have an agenda imposed on them. When you try to use Black history to shoehorn in queer theory, you are clearly trying to use that for political purposes, end quote. Now, DeSantis' remarks were his first public statements on the state's rejection of a new proposed advanced placement multidisciplinary study of the African-American diaspora that includes literature, the arts, sciences, politics, and geography. The Florida Department of Education informed the College Board of its decision in a January 12th letter that became public last week and drew widespread criticism from Black leaders in Florida and the White House. Now, the Florida Department of Education told CNN on Friday that it had concerns about 6 topics of study in the year-long course. So the course is a year-long course also, such as the movement for Black lives, Black feminism, and reparations. Many of the objections were tied to inclusion of texts from modern Black thought leaders and history teachers whose writings the DeSantis administration believes violate state's law. Now, Governor Ron DeSantis at his news conference on Monday, January 23rd, emphasized that Florida requires the teaching of Black history. Florida requires the teaching of Black history, but the state determined this optional advanced placement course violated state law. He said, quote, "We want to do history, and that's what our standards for Black history are. It's just cut and dried history. It's just cut and dried history. You'll learn all the basics. You'll learn about the great figures. And I view it as American history. I don't view it as separate history. We have to, we have history in lots of different shapes and sizes, people that have participated to make the country great, people that have stood up when it wasn't easy, and they all deserve to be taught. But abolishing prisons, being taught to high schools as if that's somehow a fact, no, that's not appropriate." So is it okay to teach about George Washington, who owned 318 slaves when he died? Is it okay to teach about Thomas Jefferson, who over his lifetime owned about 600 slaves? Think about 600 slaves he owned, and had children by Sally Hemings, who was one of his slaves. Is it okay to teach about them? Is it okay to teach about the hypocrisy in the Declaration of Independence that states that all men are created equal, but African Americans were left out of that as well as women, for that matter? So, see, when you look at these statements from Governor Ron DeSantis, you're saying that you can't teach about people who want to abolish prisons, but it's okay to teach about people who want to have prisons? Is it all right to teach about people who wanted to abolish slavery, or should you only teach about people who wanted to have slavery? If it's okay to teach about people who wanted to abolish slavery, then why is it not okay to teach about people who want to abolish prisons? Doesn't mean you have to agree with people who want to abolish prisons, but why is it? Why can't you talk about that perspective? When he talks about, we have history in lots of different shapes and sizes, people that have participated to make the country great, people that have stood up when it wasn't easy, and they all deserve to be taught, but only if they agree with the Florida Department of Education's ideology, only if they agree with Governor Ron DeSantis' ideology. Angela Davis doesn't deserve to be taught. The Black Panther Party, what about the Black Panther Party for self-defense? Because in the early draft of their disagreement, they cited the Black Panther Party for self-defense, but they changed it and changed it to Black Queer Studies. Okay, this was in the early, and we've got it in one of these articles here. They talk about this. I think it's maybe the article from National Public Radio, because I have a lot of information on this. So I want to actually show this to you, because where is that one here? Hold on. It is, I think it's one from the New York Times. Okay, actually, let's look at this one here from CNN. January 20th, 2023. Let's look at this one. Florida gives reasons for rejecting proposed AP African American Studies course. This is too much power from one crazy man to have. Okay, to determine who gets included in history and who gets excluded from history. This is too much power for one crazy white supremacist to have. If we go down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, paragraph 6, a previous draft right here. A previous draft version of the concerns sent to CNN by Governor Ron DeSantis' office included an objection to the study of the Black Power movement and the Black Panther Party. A previous draft version of the concerns sent to CNN by DeSantis' office included an objection to the Black Power movement, and the Black Power movement comes out of SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. The Black Power movement comes out of SNCC, 1966, and SNCC comes out of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. SNCC is formed about April, May 1960, and it comes out of Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which was formed in 1957 by Dr. King and Ella Baker and others. So the Black Power movement, that's part of the civil rights movement. That's like that comes out of that civil rights movement, but it's still part of the civil rights movement. You can't talk about this. You can't really talk about the civil rights movement and not talk about the Black Power movement. One of the architects of the Black Power movement is Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, who won the chairmanship of SNCC in 1966. It comes out of SNCC. So you can't teach about the Black Power movement, and then the Black Panther Party for self-defense is part of the Black Power movement. You can't teach about them. The draft version asserted that the Black Panther Party was based on the ideology of Marxism, Leninism, and the goal of the Black Panther Party was to fundamentally change or overthrow the American government. Well, they were trying to fundamentally change America because they were against white supremacy and racism. They weren't against white people. They were against oppression from white people. They were against white supremacy and racism. They worked with radical white groups and radical Asian groups and Latino groups, things like this. They were fighting against oppression. However, in an updated version of the state's concerns, the references to the Black Panther Party were removed and replaced with an objection to the study of Black queer studies. So I wonder what caused them to remove their objection to the Black Power movement and the Black Panther Party for self-defense. Okay, so read the rest of this article here. Florida gives its reasons for rejecting proposed AP African American Studies course. All right, so I wanted to give you this background information. Hopefully you saw my appearance today. Hopefully you liked the information I shared on Faraji Muhammad's show, The Culture, on the Black Star Media Network, Roland Martin's network. You can, I'm normally on Mondays, 4 p.m. So watch it on Roland Martin on Facebook and YouTube, and download the Black Star Media app. And Faraji's show is on Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. I'm on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Fridays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. as a panelist. And I'm a contributor on Faraji Muhammad's show. And then also listen to the African History Network show Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF here in Detroit. You can listen around the country. Download the iHeartRadio app. Search for 9:10 a.m. WFDF. Search for the African History Network show. Also, you can listen to podcasts of our shows. Download the TuneIn Radio app. You can listen to the show live on 9:10 a.m. WFDF, Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. We also broadcast on our social media platforms, Facebook, the African History Network, my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, and our other Facebook fan page, the Michael Imhotep Show. Michael Imhotep Show. We broadcast live. You can register for my online classes, okay? So if you like this type of information dealing with African American history, the AP courses, you want our children to learn our history, etc., join me Saturday, January 28th, 2023, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a free class session that we're offering of my flagship class, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And this is a 16-week online class. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. You can register for the full course. It's only $60, on sale $130. Click right here to register for the full course. As soon as you register, you can watch all the previous sessions. Even after the class is over with, you can go back and watch the entire course on demand. So a year from now, 2 years from now, you'll have access to the full class. This is a great resource for our youth as well. I would say the content is PG-13. I don't do a lot of cursing. It's not overly graphic or anything like that. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips. And if you missed the previous free session we did January 21st, click right here to register for that. And you can pay debit card, credit card, PayPal. If you want to pay through Cash App, email us through the website. Click on Contact the African History Network. We can do that as well. So here's the flyer for Saturday's class. We also have a bundle pack. You can get both, register for both classes for only $100. Now, if you registered for one class for $60, just email me and you can just pay the difference and get the other class for $40. Okay. This is at least a $260 value because it's bonus content that you get also when you register for the bundle as well. But you can register for the bundle right here. Click right here to register here. If you've taken any of my online courses in the past, if you paid for any of my online courses in the past, email us at ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com. ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com, and you'll get a 50% discount on the bundle pack. All right. Email us at ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com. All right. And the second class that I teach, and I created both of these classes, created the curriculum for them. The first class is a huge binder that I teach from. We have what, 60, probably 60 articles, 60, 70 articles in the class. It's about 7 books that we use as reference. You don't have to buy any of these books in the class to follow along. The second class is 2 binders that I teach from. We have probably close to 100 articles in the class. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1800 to 1968. So next class is going to be Wednesday, January 25th. It's going to be 7 p.m. to 7 p.m. to about 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have the flyer right here. It's going to be Wednesday, January 25th. And that class is on sale $60, regularly $130 also. Okay. And we deal with what leads up to the Civil War. And we look at the Civil War, Reconstruction era, the Jim Crow era, Great Migration, 1915, 1970. 6 million African Americans migrate from the South up north and out west. We look at World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement. So in the class on Wednesday, we're going to look at the Red Summer of 1919, the year after World War I ended. You had about 25 major race riots across this country. And we're going to look at the Marcus Garvey's movement, the UNIA, Universal Negro Improvement Association. We'll also look some at Dr. Carter G. Woodson as well, and the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, created in 1915. And then also Negro History Week, which becomes Black History Month, but it was created in 1926. Okay. If you like this type of information, also, you can support the African History Network. $, the AHN Show through Cash App. $, the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. Because this is a lot of work, takes a lot of resources to be able to do this. And if you are an African American business owner, you can advertise with the African History Network. Also, email us, and we take your 30-second and 60-second commercial and put it into the rebroadcast of our shows. Okay, our current promotion is buy 1 month, get 1 month free. So we have the information right on the homepage of our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. Buy 1 month, get 1 month free. Okay. So we know African American History Month is coming up. Black History Month is coming up. You can, so we have limited space. Okay. We only have about 5 spaces available for advertisers. So we have limited space. Email us right now, ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com, ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com. You can secure your ad space now. You can run your ads later, but you definitely want to take advantage of this. All right. So if you are a book author, if you sell jewelry, you sell clothing, you're a fitness instructor, what have you, you have an e-commerce store, brick and mortar store, you want to advertise with the African History Network. All right, we have to get out of here. Remember, right now is correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. Talk to you next time. Peace.